Hello everyone, welcome back to Laut Suos channel. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome. Kindly click the like button if you find this video interesting or educative. Subscribe, and if you've been here with me before, thank you so much. You are the real MVP. So now to the topic of today: how to take proper full body measurements. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is the things you are going to need. You're going to make use of four major things. The first thing you're needing is a measuring tape. You make use of a pen, a notepad, or a documenting device. It may be your phone, it may be a pad, or whatever you feel comfortable with documenting the measurements after taking them. And then the fourth thing you'll be needing is the person you are measuring, or the person that wants to measure you, in this case the measurer or the measuree. So at the end of this video, you will know how to take proper body measurements for tops, for skirts, for shorts, trousers, dresses, whatever you would want to make. Stay with me, we're going to move to the next part of this video. So for taking measurements, I have these two beauties here with me, Brianna and Amy. They are going to be of great assistance. So take proper measurements. But first thing, we need to get the clothes off. So there are two particular kinds of measurements you're going to be taking. You are going to be taking vertical measurements and then horizontal measurements. So now I'm going to start with the vertical measurements. I'm going to begin from the shoulder all the way to down. So I'm going to start with this shoulder part to the neckline. I hope you are taking notes. So the first thing we're going to measure is the neckline. How deep, how that's how high or how low or how deep you want the neckline to be. It can be at any length. I'm using inches because that's what I'm comfortable with. The next thing I measure vertically is the bust point. That's where at the point of the nipple. This is very important for accuracy when drafting a pattern for yourself or for a client. So this is the bust point. You take measurement of the bust point. After the bust point, you take measurements of the under bust. So you take note of all these vertical measurements. You have your neckline first, your bust point, your under bust point, then you have your waist point. Some people call it half cut, or some people even take it all the way down to navel point, but I call it waist point. That's the point where your waist starts. Then there's the navel point where you have where your navel is vertically. The importance of all these measurements is to know the exact point where all this is going to be on the dress. So it's whenever they make something for you, it fits perfectly. So after this vertical measurement of the navel point, you go to your hip point. Your hip point is the point where, let me turn this way. Your hip point now, trying to measure from this side. One other thing, always remember, if you are taking measurement, especially if it's for a fitted dress or a fitted outfit, make sure it goes all the way under the bust before taking it down. It is very important for accuracy. Sometimes we make mistake of just going all the way down like this, and then we get perfect measurements. So this goes all the way under the bust, then to your hip line. Looking at this, you see this at the tip part of the butt, where the butt is more. That's where you measure your hip line. So from this hip line, sorry. Okay, so now we are still on vertical measurements. So still going down from this hip line, you can take your shirt measurements here depending on whatever length you want. It may even be a crop top. You can leave it at 19. It may be a low waist top. It may be this length, however long you want your top to be. Then you've taken your hip point, then you go all the way to your thigh point length. Then you have your knee point, then all the way to your dress length, long dress length. Then you can, depending on what kind of dress you want, you can decide to measure anything all the way from either your knee point to your calf point. Your calf is this part of your leg. Your calf is this part of your leg. So you measure all the way depending on whatever length you want. So if you're taking vertical measurements for skirts or trousers now, you're going to begin from this place. For most females, we wear our trousers just like this trouser style. You wear your trousers from your upper waist, this point. Some people desire to wear it from this point, but I personally desire wearing it from this point. So you start measurements from this point, you measure to your hip point now. Your hip point, your thigh point, your knee point, all the way down, depending on whatever length you want to take. Same thing applies to trousers. The only difference between taking measurements for skirts and trousers is the trousers has an outer seam and it has an inner seam. So the outer seam is just the regular length you take when you want to take measurements for skirts. The inner seam would have to be from this point, just immediately or a little bit below the crotch. The crotch is this part of the trousers. So you take this and measure all the way down. So whatever measurement you get is what you're going to make use of whenever you are taking or whenever you need measurements for trousers. You can take it depending on how short or how long you want it to be. So now we have the crotch depth. The crotch depth is the point from your waist to your crotch. Like see what I'm wearing now. This part is the crotch. So you measure from your waist to your crotch here. That's your crotch depth. So from this point, I measure from here all the way to this point. And for this mannequin, the crotch depth is 10.5. So this is what we have. So next measurement we are going to be taking vertically will be the back measurement. So vertically, one measurement that is very, very important is the back. So one thing you're going to measure is from this nape, this point of the neck, they call it the nape, to this waist point. This is very, very important. And if you take note, this point from the nape to where the waist is, that's this point, to where the waist is always shorter at the back, while the one in the front, that's the half pot like we mentioned earlier, is always longer. And we all know why. It's because of the boobs. Yes. So this is always shorter because the back is obviously flat. So this is always shorter. So we take measurements, we take this measurement. And one other measurement vertically we also need is from the shoulder here also to this waist point, which is this. So this is for the vertical measurements we need for the back. So now the sleeves. The major measurements we need for the sleeves, vertical measurement, is we measure from the tip of the shoulder to whichever length we want the sleeve to go. One very important thing in taking measurement is we should always make sure whoever we are measuring has their elbows, has their hands akimbo or slightly bent, so we know the exact measurements of the sleeve, especially when it's a long sleeve. So my mannequin here already, Briada, already has her hands a bit bent, which is very perfect. So you take the measurements this way to this elbow point, and then to the wrist or wherever you want it. It can be a cap hand, that's at this point. It can be a short sleeve. It can be at elbow point. It can be at this point, which most people call 3/4. Then to the wrist, whichever length you want it to be. So one of the measurements you are going to be needing for the sleeve is the armhole depth. That's from the shoulder to where the arm is, just slightly a bit lower than the arm. And for this mannequin is 6. That's at this point here. So the reason why this measurement is very important is, so when you make your dress, or your tailor make your dress, your hands are moving freely, just like how this is. You can see that this this armhole is at this point. If it were to be a bit lower, because of the design of this top, if it were to be lower, it would be difficult for me to, move my arms freely. That's why this is very, very important. Also, another important measurement for this is the armhole round. That is this, how round this is. Let me turn the mannequin so that you see what I mean. So this is what I mean. Like this measurement here is always very important for accuracy. So yeah, I'm sure you got that. If you are still with me in this video, I give you a thumbs up. You're a go-getter. It means you're very serious. So now we're going to be heading to the horizontal measurements, and I'm going to be making use of aiming. So now the horizontal measurements you are going to be needing are the measurements that are across. Any measurement across is horizontal measurement. So the very first measurement you are going to be needing is your neck. That is this point. If you are going to be making a collar, outfit, anything that has to do with you taking measurements of the neck, you take these measurements. So this is one. Always make sure there is a finger in between. This makes it easy for the person breathing. You wouldn't want to make a dress that is choking, So this is one measurement you have to take, which is your neck circumference. The next measurement you're going to take, which is very important, is your shoulder. So you take measurements from this point of your shoulder to this point of your shoulder. Let me show you from the back. So you take measurements from this end of your shoulder to the other end of your shoulder. That is one horizontal measurement you'll be needing. So for the back, the horizontal measurement you'll be needing for the back, you're going to be making the back across. That's from this point to this point. You're going to be needing this measurement. It's called back across. Now, turning to the front. Another measurement you're going to be needing, especially for an off-shoulder design, you're going to be needing your off-shoulder. So you're going to be making these measurements. This is off-shoulder measurements. You're going to measure across the shoulder. The next is your tube measurement. For people who wear tube or tube sleeveless dress, this is your tube measurement. You take it this way to the back, like this, to the back. Always make sure it's accurate. That's this. The next measurement you're going to be taking is your bust, which is this. Some people like their bust very tight. Some like it, a bit free. So it depends on what your client wants or what you want. So this is fine as a bust measurement. The next horizontal measurement is your under bust, which is directly here. Your under bust measurement. One measurement I miss is your front across. That's from this point to this point. You're going to be making use of this. Very important. Front across. So the next measurement is your waist. Most people always, have issue with getting where their waistline is. So if you want to get your waistline where your waist is when you bend, you see there's a point where is bent. At that very point, that's where your waist is. So you have to, for the mannequin now, it's already defined with these lines, so it makes it easy. But if you're measuring a person, you have to ask them to bend, or where the line is, where there's that definite point from the joint of the upper part of the body to the lower part of the body. That's where your waist is. So I'm going to be taking this waist measurements like this. This is the high waist. Then we have another waist, which I call the low waist, or some people they call it normal waist, which is this point. The next thing you're going to be taking measurements is the hip. Let me turn immediately. So when taking the hip, always make sure that the tape is at the tip of the butt, the highest point of the butt. That is this point. You wouldn't want to take your hip measurement as this, or your hip measurement below like this. That's the wrong measurement, and you won't get something accurate. So you take it this way, like this, to get your measurements. You understand? So that's for your hip. So the next horizontal measurement we'll be taking is your thigh. That's this point. Your thigh here. You understand? So we're taking this thigh as your next measurement. So for trousers, where some people want very fitted trousers, they want it all the way fitted to their ankle. You can, after measuring your thigh, that's this point, you take measurements of your knee. You get me? And then you also take measurements of your calf and then your ankle. So these are the horizontal measurements you're going to be needing. So I forgot to add some horizontal measurements, and this is particular with the arm. So we take one important horizontal measurement for the arm is for the sleeve, is your arm. That's this circumference here. Some people call it round sleeve, I call it arm. So because obviously the measurement of your arm. So you take this measurement here, and then you take the measurement at the elbow. Make sure once you want to take the measurement at the elbow, you ask your client to bend their sleeve, their hands. So you can take this measurement this way. Once it's not bent, you can see how loose it is, but once it's bent, you can see how tight it is. That's why it's very important to take it when the arms are bent. And then you take measurements of your wrists here for a very fitted hand, so you have it accurate. Take measurements of your wrist. So this is all for the horizontal measurements. Let's move to the next and final part of the video. Welcome back from the measuring session. To finalize, these are all the measurements you would be needing. This is a full body measurement. Thank you so much for staying this long with me, the final part of this video. If you found this video educative, if you found this video useful, please help me click the like button, subscribe if you want to see more of this content. I really love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for stopping by. Bye.